How many of you are active in some way on a weekly basis? And in your opinion, what is one of the most important qualities someone can have when achieving any goal? My name is Leah, and today we'll be discussing exercise-related motivation. I'll be telling you what it is, some processes towards achieving consistency, some strategies that build adherence, and also some factors that can impact one's decision to either start or continue to be active. So what is the definition of exercise-related motivation? It is the reason why someone is active, and it is also the forces that drive someone to stay consistent. For example, exercise should be intrinsically motivated. Intrinsic motivation is when we exercise because it makes us feel good, and because we want to, and because it gives us some more energy, right? Extrinsic motivation is when we're impacted by outside sources such as a trophy or attention. However, it's important that exercise should be intrinsically motivated because it is very important for one's health. So, what are some different ways that we can gauge someone's motivation level? Without using any fancy tools, there are a few ways we can do this. One being, we can assess their attitude towards exercise. And the other, we can assess how much effort they're putting into exercise or an activity. According to James Piotrowska at the Sage Journals, developers and practitioners of health behavior change programs can master a small number of behavior change constructs to promote positive change. One of the most important topics of this discussion today is how important positive support and reinforcement is going to be towards exercise-related motivation. There is one tool, however, that we use, and it's called the trans-theoretical model of behavior change. The trans-theoretical model of behavior change is when we implement behaviors rooted in psychotherapy related to diet or exercise, and today we'll be relating those to exercise. There are 5 different stages. The first being pre-contemplation. This is when an individual is sedentary and they have no desire to change. The second stage is called contemplation, and this is when they are thinking about changing, however they have not taken any action towards doing so. The third stage is called preparation. This is when action has been taken, however they aren't consistent. And in this stage, it's the most important for giving positive support because it is easy for them to regress back to familiar habits. The fourth stage is called action. This is when someone is consistently active, however they are consistently active for less than 6 months. And in the last stage, maintenance, is when someone is consistently active for over 6 months. So, what are some ways, how can we strategize building some adherence? Because exercising consistently is a commitment. There are strategies for each stage of the trans-theoretical model of behavior change, and each have different individual requirements. However, the overarching requirement is positive reinforcement and support. According to the National Library of Medicine, clinicians should validate the experience of the patients by acknowledging with them the perceived positive effect of exercising and the ambivalence to change. Once again, positive reinforcement is the anchor to all positive change. So what different strategies can relate to the different stages of the model? For the first stage, pre-contemplation, some strategies we can use is educating the individual on the benefits and the risks of exercising or not exercising. For the second stage, contemplation, what we can do is we can identify, discuss, and work through any barriers or misconceptions that they may have. In the third stage, preparation, we can create realistic goals and timelines for them. And in the fourth and fifth stage, what we can do is provide positive support and positive reinforcement. There is another tool that we use, and it's called SMART goals. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. This can be used for any kind of goal. However, pertaining to exercise, it is very important for building adherence. So specific meaning what is the specific details of the goal that we're trying to achieve or work towards. Measurable meaning how will we know once we've reached the goal. Attainable, meaning is it realistic? And if not, how can we modify it to make it more so? Relevant, meaning is this relevant to a situation that we're in or an injury we have just gone through? And time-bound, meaning how often, for how long, and when will we know once we've reached the goal? How long will we be practicing this behavior until we've reached the goal? So, exercise is a commitment, and some things can impact one's decision to start or continue exercise. However, there are 3 different factors that can describe these different problems that people are going through. The first factor is physical attributes such as demographic, male versus female, biomedical status such as any conditions that they have or any pre-existing conditions, and psychological traits such as confidence level and how they view themselves. The second factor is environmental factors such as access to equipment, and the most important and used excuse out of anyone to put off exercise is not having enough time. And the third factor is physical activity factors such as have they been injured in the past? How will that affect them? According to the National Institute of Health, the fear of re-injury after a sports injury can negatively affect the recovery of physical functions and return to sports rate. I can attest to this. I've had 3 knee surgeries, and it was very hard for me to get back into my sport. However, with intrinsic motivation and exercise-related motivation, I was able to push through, and it was for the greater good, and I was better for it. With this speech, I hope you've learned some things about the importance of exercise-related motivation. I hope you learned the process of committing to consistency, some strategies that we can use to build adherence, and also some factors that can be possible why someone isn't committing to exercise. Thank you very much.